Okay, welcome back to Story2Satori and with our guest Ben Bharat from Germany. And as we saw in the first part, and which I call is doing, or which is also the past. I mean, we have given it two labels, it's the past or the doing part of it. And in search of living a simple life, and in search of growing his own food for his family and living a healthy lifestyle, we heard how Ben Bharat went through a lot of kind of a mental strife, more of a mental strife, sitting in the cubicle and going through all that, most of IT people would definitely relate to that and resonate, and how it is to sit in the AC cubicles and all the time, long hours work. And then he made this decision to, just with 8 suitcases. Was it the time, Bharat, you thought of the 8 suitcases that I read in one of your blogs? And he moved to a place which is beautiful, as he said in his we saw in the last video. He talks about simple living is equal to getting rid of what we don't want, simplifying things, becoming independent. And that led him to go to the Fiji island. And then he also felt he has yet to let go of some more baggage, 8 suitcases, plus the baggage of karma that we talked about in the last part. So can you start from there, What led you to think that you still had that karma baggage with you, though you had sold out? I saw your Facebook pics.
Yeah.
A lot of things you sold.
Yeah, actually, I have to commit. I have to confess. When we went to Fiji, I still had savings, so we were shipping a lot of like crates with our stuff there. And when we left Fiji, it was way less.
Okay.
Like on Fiji, there we still were not really being independent, because we lived on the land of someone else. And then there was a big hurricane, and our small community of dedicated people got smaller, and we ended up only being with one other family. And at that time, our friends from USA, upstate New York, they asked if we don't want to support them and help them in growing a sustainable farm community. And yeah, that was the right moment. So then when we went there, we already had way less. And then when our visa was over, we tried to get a visa. And like 3.5 years, we were living in the US and living there on a field in a tiny home, a motorhome, and growing our own food, milking the cows, and we didn't get the visa. So then when we left, then we only had 8 bags. So that was just some months ago, before we got into lockdown. So yeah, I can see how my karma traveled with me. In a sense, yeah, when you mention, I said I realized that I need to become independent in order to live a simple life and to be fulfilled, to be more in myself. I first need to get rid of all the unnecessary things. And being independent also means for me now that I'm not dependent on someone paying me, that I'm not on the payroll of someone, that I'm not living on the property of someone else in someone else's house, and also that I'm not dependent on the food of the supermarket, or even health, in terms of health, that I'm not dependent on the doctor and the pharmaceutical medicines in any area of life, even that I'm not independent at money at all. And that's I want to say that's my Rajasic nature striving for the ideal. And I don't need to get to the ideal, but that's the direction I'm heading, being independent and happy in abundance. For example, we saw that in Fiji when my karma there was, I didn't know how to live simple just at the field. I only knew how to push buttons, how to turn a knob, and all the systems were working. Light was there, water was there. But once I was on the field, it was like I was feeling the responsibility to protect my family. Yeah, okay, there were no dangerous animals. Even there were some bears and some coyotes in nearby, but it was not really dangerous. But living in such a tiny home, I learned quickly how the systems are working, how the pump is working, and how the solar is working, and how to provide for my wife and my family. I see I became a real man, if you can say so. Like, in that time I matured and became adult. Before my karma was, I was always dependent. Either when early on in my life, I got money from my mother. I grew up without a father. So then after school, I got money from the state, and then I studied, and then I worked up the ladder, the career ladder. But I was always dependent on someone, on my mother, on the state, on the corporations. And for the first time living simple, I was only dependent on nature and on God.
Here, Ben, I want to ask you a few questions. One thing that you speak of is becoming independent is also not depending on others, like, for either finance or even as you said, you grew up like a man, for everything. We are so dependent either on a plumber or some kind of an external agency for getting things done. And we have this block, we can't do it, either it's a piece of carpentry or whatever it is, and the fear of animals, as you said. I saw the pictures in Facebook and in the field, you guys, all the four of you are living, your two sons, your wife, you, in a small little house. It's on wheels, right? Your house was on wheels.
Yes.
And was it that time in the Fiji island? You were on the wheels, right? The house is
in Fiji, we had just had one cottage, basically one room, and not very big.
Yes.
Then in the US, we had that tiny home on wheels.
Yes.
And yeah, in the beginning, I remember the first night, my kids asked me to sleep at the door and have a machete next to us. We were used to working with the machetes in Fiji. So they asked me to sleep there, and they were afraid. And my wife was afraid. Like in Germany, we knew when we're in the house, we're locking the door 2 times and we have a bar and really safe. Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm in Germany. Right now we are at the house of my wife's parents, and it's nice little countryside, side street, and still they got their car being stolen right on their property. So we are used to safety. And then on the field, my wife was locking the door, and I was saying, my dear, we don't need to lock the door here. Don't be afraid.
Yeah.
And she trusted me, and it really helped, because we developed that feeling of the earth will care for us, God will care for us. And it was like that. I never felt more secure than being in the middle of the field. And speaking about animals, there was a bull. When we arrived, it was a small bull, like half a meter, or a little, or maybe almost a meter high. And he became really big, higher than me at the end when we left. And I was training him with commandos to pull something. And in the beginning, I was really afraid with such a big animal. I had never experienced.
Was it the first time you dealt with an animal,
yes.
like a bull? Yeah.
Yes, because my whole life I had allergies, Later, I
Yeah.
developed food allergies, and then living sustainably, my allergies went almost away. So now I can eat almost everything, and with the
Okay.
animals, it's uh, not that how do you say, yeah, like with cows, I don't feel any problem. I don't
Yeah.
get any sneezing or so. And so I see the whole lifestyle. I cannot tell you what exactly it is. I have some clues and ideas, but the whole thing, it transformed my being, and also my inner strengths. I tapped into my inner strengths where I feel safe and secure with a big animal like that, and just
Yeah.
also feeling safe and secure, and whatever will happen, I can deal with it. Like in the
Yeah.
beginning, I was even afraid to drive with that RV on the field. I was thinking I will get stuck somewhere, or maybe I will break something because there are bumps, and what if it rains? Then it will be muddy and I cannot drive out. And we were on that field for 3.5 years, and we got out and in, and on that field there was nothing. It was overgrown, and it was like a miracle to see how I got that intelligence, that inspiration and intuition from inside, what to do next. We were growing food on like 2 acres. Yeah,
Yes.
so we got grains, barrels of grains, and my kids and we didn't know how to do that, and my wife was not so interested to grow grains or so. uh,
Oh, is it? Okay. So
so
just
then
to sorry to interrupt, but I just want to tell the viewers that Ben Bharat has been, actually, he left his, as we saw in the first video, he left all his possessions, and most of his possessions he left in where he stayed in Germany, and then he went to Fiji Islands. And there he actually, he's describing, the fears that he went through. It's very natural for a human being to go through these fears. I think, I need your little bit of, insight on this, Ben, that sitting in the concrete house, I mean, in India, we don't have wooden houses, we sit in concrete houses. And maybe you also, Westerners, we all sit in wooden houses or concrete houses. And yet we have these fears, if not of animals, we have fear of something else, losing a job, or having bad health, or it could be breaking of a relationship even before things happen. And in fact, how many of us find person like Ben Bharat, who just because he had this, he started feeling stressed in a job, he took a dire action to leave that job, and then he went on this kind of an adventure with his family. And so I want to ask you, Ben, and please throw light on this. There are two or more questions, in fact, but I'll start with one or two. One is, when you started getting this inspiration to live a higher life, as you said, the higher living, simple living and high thinking,
right.
thinking high. Now, what exactly, because see, the viewers, people are ordinary people. I'm not saying they are ordinary in the sense of IQ or EQ or whatever it is. I'm saying not everybody does the type of thing that you have done, though we desire to do. And we all want to become more conscious. We want to become spiritually inclined. We want to really give up everything and live in that kind of a paradise. But action is where we really miss out. We don't take actions. It all happens only here. We are scared. We are frightened. So what made you to ask those questions, the urgent questions of life, that you say, who am I? What is my special service? And what do I want to create? Because
for me,
you have now, we're talking of the space of being now. In the first part, we saw the doing. He got so fed up of doing in the corporate life. Now we're talking of the future. That was the past. Now this is the future. To live this future, he wanted to become something, start being in that space. So how did you get these thoughts, and how did you see, we all get these thoughts. How did you put them into actions? What drove you and give you that kind of the charge to do these things? And how did your wife fall in line with you? How did she agree? Is she also in the same lines of thinking like you?
ironically, it was fear that was driving me. So
Oh.
I can say I was in a lower state of consciousness. You could say the inert state of consciousness, tamasic consciousness, being driven by fear means lower consciousness. I was afraid of raising my children in the way that everyone raises children in a materialistic world. At least here in Germany, it is like that,
Yes.
mainstream. That they will not know how to eat mindfully, that they will not know how to live in an independent way with that is inclined for self-realization, and that they will got just swayed away by everything that is there. And yeah, my wife, she was interested in traveling. She was interested in these things. She was not really fully aligned. I don't want to speak for her, but
Yeah.
I can say now she is fully aligned with that mission, and she realized the same things by just living that way. And she didn't know her deep desires as I was not knowing my deep desires. Like I was not knowing my fears. Like it sounds so brave and courageous when you say that. Yeah, I took action, but actually I was cheating myself. I was in an illusion. I was just getting into the simplicity trap in Fiji, running away from duties in Germany. I see it like that now because I was not experiencing my own fear. I was always saying everything is good for me, everything is okay. But then when you say in a concrete building, like here in Germany, we don't have many like insects. I mean, right now I see an ant crawling along the wall, but we don't have many insects here. We don't have any snakes or any natural danger, no earthquakes. And there is not much harm, even not from other persons. It's not that you are so much in anxiety here, but still there are anxieties about the future. And here's my insight on that. This is, for me, I realized that all stemmed from my misidentification with being a project manager, being a successful manager. So being a German, being this person, when I look into the mirror, identifying with this body, that already can lead to anxieties. How can I keep that body beautiful and young? How can I arrange that others see me as successful? How? And then I don't notice my own feelings, because I always pretend to be someone that I'm not.
As you said.
Yeah. So for me, it started with this principle. I only learned that and realized that in coaching, experiencing my experience. And in Fiji, it was like a black and white contrast when we were in that cottage. Although it had stone walls and it was quite sophisticated for a Fijian cottage, but I was laying on a little mat on the ground, sleeping there, and in the night I was hearing so many sounds from animals I don't know. I cannot even make these sounds now. I was afraid. I was feeling fear inside. My rational mind was saying there's no reason for fear. There are no dangerous animals in Fiji. But I was feeling insecure and not grounded inside. And if there was a critter, small critters crawling on me, sometimes I was like, and I was in Germany. I know the little critters, and I know, like, oh, that's nothing. But I was, yeah, like now I can tell you, I notice when when like a bee or a wasp is flying along my ear, and sometimes I'm feeling afraid, and I know I don't even pull away when there's a wasp inside the house or so. I'm staying cool. I'm not afraid of it, but hearing the noise from the wasp, I feel a little afraid. And in the past, I didn't notice these things, and now I'm realizing, okay, there's fear inside of me, and I'm convinced the fear, it will always be there. And only if I look at that fear and recognize it, it loses its power to drive me
Yes.
from the surface.
Yeah. So
That's for me.
just to
That's for me
recap.
the beginning, like starting to
Yeah.
not identify with something material, with my body, with my job, with my title, to let go of all of these designations. That means being simple for me, not only to clean up the house and let go of stuff. That can help, of course, to outer order, helps to have inner calm, supports inner calm, but it means this inner identification. As soon as I stop identifying with all these designations, I'm getting so much more peace and accepting that there are feelings. Yeah, I am in a passionate body, and I will. Yeah, I didn't want to
Yes, yes,
interrupt you,
yes.
but I wanted to conclude
No,
that
no, no,
point
it's
because
okay.
it's
I
so
mean, it was
important. Yeah.
very enraptured listening to you, but then I wanted to just make sure that viewers, understand that in the first thing that we talked about was Ben Bharat not even getting motivated out of bravery, but it was out of sheer fear. It was like a flight or uh, fight or flight mode, we talk
Escape.
about.
Yeah.
It was just running, escaping from the situation of the corporate, climbing that ladder and getting stressed up. And then in the second part that we are now seeing, this is when he started actually connecting to that fear, processing that fear, looking it into the face. And that's when he, as you really rightly say, Bharat, that when you see the fear and you hear all sorts of noises in the night, being a man, you're sleeping on the mat, I can just visualize that, and you can hear all sorts of noises, and you start looking it directly in the face. And that is when, if not only the fear of animals, all the other fears also, kind of started getting grounded, and you started facing those fears, and you started being a man in this part. When you were in that Fiji island, you really became a man because you started seeing those fears, and you saw those fears, experienced them, and you went through everything, you processed it. And then tell me, what was the step that you took? And once you started understanding that you can deal with these, because many of us, we want to have these adventures in life, we want to say, I want to be a self-realized soul, and I want to really think high, and I want to know who I am, and what is my purpose in life, or what is that special service. But then we need to actually go through this process. This is the process, whether it's sleeping in that field with your family far away, where there is no other human being, no connection, no phone. Maybe you had a phone. Did you have a phone there, or
Yeah,
what
I
was
had
the
a little phone,
situation?
but
Yeah, mobile, not
hardly
the
any reception. Huh?
exactly.
I had,
And
yeah.
yeah. So, and then what did you do, after having seen the fear, becoming independent, in a very higher sense, I can't even say it's emotional intelligence. It's beyond that. I would call it spiritual intelligence. Is it that the right word to use here?
I like that spiritual intelligence.
Yeah.
Someone told me recently about, there's so much more to intelligence than just the rational intelligence and measuring the IQ. There's also emotional intelligence, social
Yes.
intelligence, how I interact and create relationships, and different types of intelligence. And I was immediately feeling there's one type of intelligence missing, the spiritual intelligence. And I don't say I have much of this, but that's what I really want to hold. Is what I esteem most, because that's giving the direction for everything else in life. To
Right.
see there's some life force that is different from my body, something that makes my heart beat, and that I cannot measure that with any material instruments. And
Yeah.
that's giving me the peace. And the driver was to live in a situation where I have the surrounding to think about these things. And yeah, my action steps were, first, like right now, if someone is looking that right now, that's the first action step, I would say, to think about it, to contemplate about it. And then the next thing is to prepare for a tangible goal that is realistic. And then set one goal, and that maybe only be one baby step. That doesn't mean everyone needs to migrate to another country. Maybe that starts with, I want to change my relationship with my work, and changing how my desktop is arranged.
Yes.
It can be things like that. So as I find that's very, very individual to contemplate. And then first, for me, it was seeing what I not want. I don't want to eat any more food that I'm convinced is not good for my body. I don't want to feed that food to my children. And not everyone needs to grow food because of that. But for me, it also started, it was a process of like 10 years or more, to say, I don't want to buy anything where I don't know what's written on the label. I want to educate myself. Now I want to take full responsibility for my life in every aspect. And I don't want to lament. I don't want to think, oh, my wife, she needs to think like I do, and she needs to love the little tiny motorhome. And no, she doesn't love that. I acknowledge that. That's she likes something different, and she didn't know that beforehand, because she was not experiencing her experience and knowing her desires. And then she got to realize, what she likes and what she doesn't like. And now we are meeting. Now we are able to see, okay, I don't like this, I like that. And we don't judge about it. We can relate, and feeling safe with having different experiences and different desires. And that's, for me, that's the biggest step for me. It's like internally, everyone can switch that in 1 second if you want.
If you want.
Yeah, to accept life as it is. Okay, my life is in that status right now, wherever I'm at. Cubicle, paradise in Fiji, field in New York State, or being in the house of the parents-in-law in Germany. Wherever I am, my being is not dependent on the material circumstances and what people think about me, and on anything, on any material stuff and any material assets I have. And I don't need to be dependent on what my wife think or what my wife wants.
Yeah. So that was really very interesting and very, very insightful, because many of our listeners, many of our viewers would definitely relate, because we are going through a lot of shifts now with the pandemic, with a lot of things happening at the social level, the society level. So we are going to meet in our last part, which I would say, after having done the doing and then the being, now we're going to go into the state of creating, because creating requires to be in the present moment. So we saw what was the story that Ben Bharat had in the past, how he had stress in the corporate, how he experienced a lot of strife, mental strife and agony. And then he went into a mode of running from that place. He went to several places, that is, one is US, then he was also in Fiji Islands. And then now he's currently in Germany, and he's talking about being in a state of not getting affected by anything, and also things external are not really impacting him in a way that did before. So we're going to meet in the next part, the last part, when we're going to see the insights, the Satori, and we are standing in reality, in the current reality, how he's going to handle, how he's handling in fact, and what are the nuggets that we can take from him and apply it. And we can also get in touch with him if we want more further guidance, because we're going to talk a lot in the last part. Let's meet in the next video.
Okay, see you there.
Yeah, see you there.